Alright, in this video we're going to look at a pistol. A collector friend of mine has asked me to find some parts to get this gun fixed up. It's missing two things, a pin and a small spring. You'd think it's not that difficult, but it took me a few days to find the proper parts, and they were astronomically expensive for what they are. Alright, so what we have here is a Luger. And this one's a little bit more unusual than your run-of-the-mill Luger because, like I mentioned in the other video when I was talking about this particular Luger was made by the company of Krieghoff. So it's Krieghoff Luger. First thing we'll do, so everyone doesn't panic, is we will clear the weapon. So the weapon gets its safety check. Now, out of all the suppliers of Lugers to the German Army in World War II, Krieghoff was the one that had the least number of completed guns delivered, making it, as far as Lugers issued to the German Army, a little bit rarer than any other, Mauser or anyone else that supplied them during the war. Now, how do we know this is a Krieghoff? Because Krieghoffs have their company symbol here on the toggle. And I believe they only produced like 2,000-3,000 of them or something. The number was quite low. So that's what kind of makes them a rarity and unusual. And this is the first piece that I've handled a Krieghoff Luger in 40 years. I seen one a long time ago when I worked for a company that was dealing in military collectibles. But to actually hold in my hand, this is the first time I've seen a Krieghoff Luger in about 40 years. Now, a strange story about these. Now, I'm not a Luger expert. I don't know what current prices are or what they're valued. But this is an unusual gun, and I'll go over the points with it in there. So if you see this video, I don't own it. I'm not selling it. I just know what I know. The gun, I believe, the owner told me he'd say it's at 60% or something, which in any guidebook or something, a 60% gun is listed. You're looking at, like I said, around the $2,000 mark, because they don't, they are kind of rare unless you go to that collector's website down there in Texas. He has about a half dozen of them, and they range anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000. So there are different variants about this pistol, okay, which it struck me as unusual when I first examined it. One thing you're going to notice when you look at this gun, as with most Lugers, okay, you have your serial number, which is over here on the receiver up here. Serial number is here. Serial number is down on the frame, down in there. And there is a serial number on the barrel, very lightly. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a serial number there, another proof mark, and I believe, 882. And there is another mark that's kind of obliterated up here. And the gun has the standard on this side of the receiver, the German proof marks. But most Lugers you look at, every single part on the outside has the last two digits. This takedown lever, the plate, the top of the toggle, the back of this toggle here, would all have the last two digits of the number on there. So I did not see that. That was unusual. Now, this pistol also has, instead of a date, you will find the Krieghoff Lugers 1936, 1937, 42, whatever. This has an S on the receiver where the date should be. Okay, now this was when the Germans were secretly rearming and they put little letter codes on the pistols. So this means this gun was around 1935 or before. That gives you an idea of the date, but I could not find any records exactly on that. But they started putting a date in 36, so this gun was made prior to that, 1934. So I said, you know, it's kind of unusual that it doesn't have any of the little parts all stamped. And for those of you who don't know, the Luger is a 7-shot toggle action. Pull that back. And it is a single action. This action must go back and recock the firing pin. Your safety is here. And when you put it down, it says there in German, safe. So that is your safety. And I believe when you have a round in the chamber, the extractor will protrude, so it is a like a loaded chamber indicator when you do that. Okay, and then we can fire. And if you look here, the mechanism, you can see it when you move it, it just lifts up a flat spring and then it shoots. The overall condition, you know, this gun has been used. I had it apart, it's been used. You can see the wear on the frame and that. There's some wear on the barrel and everything. And on the back. And another unusual thing, it has plastic grips. It doesn't have wooden grips. The grips are a plastic, which, you know, over the years they could have been replaced. They could have been, you know, the gun could have been fooled with after it was sold on a surplus market by somebody, or, you know, you never know. Okay, so that's how it came. And what the problem is, there's a few items missing in this. So what we'll do is we'll take it apart. And for those of you that don't know, the weapon's cleared and fired. How to field strip a Luger. Okay, to field strip this, what you usually would do is push the barrel down on the table like this, but because of the camera, the gun is unloaded, is not cocked. This is your takedown lever. So you push the action rearward a little bit, which allows you to turn this down and disengage it. And you have to remove this side plate here, like that, and the whole upper assembly comes out. This gives you your internal frame. That little piece there, when you put it back, you got to make sure that that's back and kind of goes down and hooks up on them two little fingers in there, because that's the main thing that puts tension on the toggle. Okay. Now, since it's already coming apart for us, we'll set the frame in this aside. Now, to disassemble it, you'll take this rear pin, axle pin out, and then you could withdraw the rest of the toggle mechanism from the upper receiver. Now, the problem this gun has is, if you look, there's a real tiny little hole there in this toggle where my tip of my thumb is, and that retains another pin. That this little pin here is basically holds this in between the center cuts of this toggle and this piece here. So that was difficult to find. Nobody even had that part on the parts list. And what it is, it's through this tiny hole that pin will capture and hold this axle pin in. I found Bob's or Lugerman that restores. There's a company in Pennsylvania, you can look it up online, Lugerman. He had that component. He was the only one that had it. It took me a day or two to find it. So we have our toggle pieces here and pins. You have your upper receiver barrel assembly. And see, this is where your sear and all these parts are all nicely machined in there and pressed in there. And that the barrel condition on this one is not too good. The bore's a little rough, had a lot of corrosive ammo in it, and it's worn. And if you see from the underside, this pistol has had a lot of use, okay? Either during the war or somebody shot the hell out of this. Now look, and you can see the wear also, the heavy wear on the lower end of the frame. There's your takedown lever and trigger. Now, like I said, the unusual thing about this gun is the numbers. The numbers, we're supposed to be looking for the number 39, the last two digits of the serial number. And generally on most Lugers they're here, but as I've seen it, the number 39 is inside here. We have the Krieghoff toggle, and then down inside of the toggle, inside this, is a number 39. Now the only unfortunate part is this breech bolt face here, whatever part of the toggle you wish to call it. This has a number 83. So this forward piece here is the only mismatched part, and it looks a lot newer and nicer, and that is where your extractor and everything is in there. There isn't one, there isn't a number here, so it leads me to wonder, and if you look, that is a loaded chamber indicator. There's something written there on that. Pretty interesting. Generally, it should have a number on it, but if it doesn't have it, it must be a commercial or a replacement part with no number. Also, side plate has a number 39 on it. The axle pins, looks like it does. May have a number on there or not, it's illegible. Don't think there's one on this one. Okay. Trigger, and let's see. Yep. On the takedown, on the back side, the numbers there 39. Now another problem, if you notice when I turn this upside down, another part falls out. Here. Now this piece has like a proof mark or a mark on it, a crown or something, but no number blued in it. Alright, and what this is the bolt stop. It goes in right there, and what's missing is in the front of this there's a flat spring that is supposed to it'll go inside the cutout there, that little cutout, and then wrap around, and that would lock that in place into the frame, and also, give it the spring tension it needs, because right now it doesn't quite function and that part falls out. But as we can see, this is very well, all Lugers are well machined pieces. Let me see if I can get the grips off and we'll look at the frame a little better. Okay, I've removed one grip, which is a plastic or Bakelite, and they look quite worn, so I don't know if they're the originals on there or not. There's a little engraving LA plus MM kind of scribed in there, which is unusual. And the number 8964 and some manufacturer marks on there. Alright, and this kind of exposes it. The other grip didn't want to come off. This isn't my gun, I ain't forcing it, I ain't gonna monkey with it. But it gives you an idea. There's your spring, which goes up to that little claw hook, and that's what drives the whole mechanism in there. And you can see where your safety lever, does that work or not? Yeah, there we go. See, when you operate the safety, it moves that up and actually physically blocks, when you pull the trigger, the sear from moving. And you can see it inside the frame there. Pretty neat. All very well made, well machined. It's kind of the undoing of a gun like this. While it's a lot of quality stuff, any amount of dirt, debris, or not cleaning it can render it inoperable. Now the magazine, I don't know if it's original or not. Number one, it has a plastic or Bakelite bottom, but it is inscribed and stamped. Down here is P08, and then there's a FXO, and a little, it looks like a little Nazi acceptance symbol in there. Pretty interesting. So that might be the original mag. I don't know. I'm not a Luger expert, and one of the reasons I've owned Lugers over the years, but they were the first gun that was like a had-to-have gun after World War II. They're not that rare to begin with, just Lugers in general, but it was the first fad gun after World War II there. It's long before I was born. Everybody had to have a Luger. Every soldier had to capture a Luger and all this other stuff. And they are an iconic weapon, but, you know, that's when things start getting crazy. You know, after the war, these things were a dime a dozen. They were everywhere. All right? But it's turned into where it's kind of a must-have for a collection. And prices are, on good examples, or any example, are astronomical, and they sell out. And the reason I got rid of mine is because when the time came and I needed money, taking a Luger out of my collection and selling it, it sold quick. I usually got what I wanted for it, and I didn't fool around. So they were investments in that, but I kind of got out of collecting because of the astronomical prices and the craziness of it. And if you're going to fool around with Lugers, especially collectible ones, you better do your research and know what you're doing to make sure you ain't getting rooked. And, you know, like I said, when you go to a gun show, nobody's really going to allow you to take a gun apart like this. Let me get this back together here. Alright, I just had to line that up. You know, nobody's going to let you disassemble a gun to this degree at a gun show or something like that. And that's the problem, is you kind of have to get into one of these to this point in order to know if you're, making a good deal or not. I gotta trip that sear. Well, don't look like I'm gonna be able to do that, but alright, now I got the lower half in there, and with this back, trying not to get my magazine release knocked out. Then you want to tip this over so that it drops down in there, and we're good there. And our plate, yep, down pat in there, push back, up we go, and we got it. Alright, so there's a little look at the Luger, and like I said, when you go to a gun show or a shop or something, I doubt very much anybody to let you take a gun apart to that degree. So it's tough when you're buying these, and especially if you're buying these at an auction or auction house. Make sure that the people are very reputable and you get an accurate description, because I've seen a lot of these, and I mean, if you look at any Rock Island or any of the big major gun auction companies, they generally have dozens and dozens of Lugers in their auctions each and every time. They are an iconic pistol, classic weapon. Someday if I get the opportunity or the money, I may get one myself. Like I said, I personally had 2 or 3 different ones over the years, and when money got to be a pinch, they went because they sell quick and there's no fooling around with them. I've never had trouble selling one of these handguns fast and getting someone to pay you for them also. So there's our look at our Krieghoff S date Luger, and I believe this was a commercial rework. That's why the numbers, I think, and I brought that up, we took it all apart and looked, that's why the numbers are on the inside, not on the outside, as like a military issue gun. I believe this was a commercial model that they actually ended up in German service. So that's why the numbers, and I've seen a couple photographs of pistols just like this, where the numbers were on not exposed on the outside. But this is a matching gun, other than for the one part up here, the forward part of the toggle system, or the breech face. So, not too terrible, but an interesting gun. And I thought I'd get it out here and let us all take a pretty good look at it. Something you don't see every day, that us average collectors don't get to see, is a Krieghoff Luger. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoy looking at this classic old piece. And stay tuned.